You're so cute, Georgina.
Thank you, Teddy.
Yes, and your curly hair is so lovely.
Thank you, Barbie.
Mom, Dad, she's talking to her stuff again.
My brother never understood anything, and he was so annoying. But they're talking back. Can't you hear them?
Oh my gosh, you're such a weirdo. Mom!
I was only about 5 years old, and for a while, I didn't know that I was the only one who could speak to objects. My parents were worried at first, but then they decided that I was probably going through some weird kind of phase. But I wasn't. In fact, I thought that all the kids could do it. Well, it wasn't like I started the conversations. They were the ones who started talking to me. It wasn't just my Teddy and my Barbie. Chairs, bottles, books, walls, trees, almost everything spoke to me. I watched Beauty and the Beast once, and when I saw the talking cup, clock, and candle, I thought that maybe I was normal. But what was wrong with my brother? And my parents? Were they just pretending that they couldn't hear them too? Regardless, I was Georgina, the girl who could talk to anything. Keep watching to see how this eventually made my life turn crazy. One day, I decided to ask my best friend at school if the same thing was happening to her.
Don't do it. She'll laugh.
She won't understand. Just be quiet.
Peppy, do things talk to you?
What do you mean?
Like, things without mouths. Like your toys, walls, and even this chair. Did you hear what it just told me?
What?
I told you she wouldn't understand.
Be quiet.
Who are you talking to?
The chair. Didn't you hear him?
Teacher, Georgina is crazy.
And that was how I lost my kindergarten best friend. When I learned that I was special, I became very secretive about what I could do since I realized that no one could understand, and there was no way to explain it to them. I felt like I was lucky because I'd never be lonely, but sometimes this strange power freaked me out. Imagine going to the bathroom and the toilet goes, "Hey, what do you think you're doing? Stop that." I had no control over what things said, and sometimes I couldn't make them shut up. Then, on my 10th birthday, everything stopped. I simply couldn't hear objects anymore. And when I tried talking to them, they wouldn't talk back. I was sad for a while, but I found other things to do. When I started middle school, I became a sort of a social butterfly. I was the leader of several clubs and could always be found doing something positive and constructive. Bake sales to help the homeless, volunteering at animal shelters, cleaning up the park. I was always busy. I'd made some great friends too. There was Yvonne, Hermione, and Peyton. We were inseparable, and because we had similar interests, we got along really well. Our friendship continued until we were older and ready for high school. We planned to go to the same one, and the summer before that, we decided to volunteer at a camp for disabled children. It was one of the most inspiring things I'd ever done, and I was really happy for the chance to make a difference in so many children's lives. On the last day of camp, we had a talent show, and the kids' parents came to watch. At the end of the show, a cute old lady approached me with a gift.
My daughter Leslie can't stop talking about you. She said that you were one of the best mentors at the camp and that she can't wait to come back next year. You will be volunteering again next year, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm so happy she had a great time.
Well, here, I brought you a gift. Don't open it until you get home.
She winked and then walked away. I put the present in my suitcase and forgot all about it until later when I was unpacking at home. I took it out and put it on my bed. I opened it and cringed. It was a yellow purse, and I didn't like yellow at all. Ew. Where am I gonna go with this? It's hideous.
Rude.
I nearly fainted. Was I tired? Hallucinating? Maybe I needed some sleep. I wasn't able to get much sleep at the camp after all. Yep, I guess it's bedtime for me.
What about me? Could you buy me a pillow and put it on your desk? I want to have a bed too. Since we're best friends now, I'm going to live in your room.
Did you really just talk to me? But how is that possible? You're a purse.
You don't see me questioning your abilities. Gosh, you're so rude. Anyway, my name is Coralissa. Nice to meet you, Georgina.
This is weird.
It wasn't weird when you were a child, was it? I know that you could speak to everything.
No, I am not going through this again. I grabbed the purse, sped downstairs to the kitchen, and threw it in the trash can. I went back upstairs to my room and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up, and as soon as I opened my eyes, there it was. right next to my head.
Good morning, sunshine.
Ah! How did you get back here?
Aw, come on. Just give me a chance, will you? We would be great friends.
Although I was spooked out, I decided to give her a chance. I had 1 week left before high school, and I had a whole bunch of things to do, so I decided that it probably wouldn't hurt to bring her with me. She was okay that week, but she told me she wanted to come to school with me the next week.
I can give you advice about making new friends and stuff like that.
I don't need advice, and I already have friends. I took Coralissa to school with me anyway.
Hey, Georgina. We're in high school, girl. I can't believe it. Hey, why do you have that huge yellow purse and a backpack?
Well, I just had so many things to carry.
Can't you get, like, a black one? That yellow is awful.
I know, but it's all I have.
Cool. Let's find our English class.
I went to class with Hermione and figured we'd meet Yvonne and Peyton in the class. Our new English teacher seemed really nice, but midway into her explanation of the syllabus, Coralissa started being annoying.
Boring.
Be quiet.
I should have stayed at home.
Stop talking.
Young lady, who are you talking to?
No one. Sorry, Miss Jones. After class, my friends were looking at me funny, and I was so tempted to throw Coralissa into the trash again.
Sorry, friend. I'll make it up to you.
It was lunchtime.
See that girl sitting over there all alone? Her name is Catherine, and she likes pandas. But she has no friends. Why don't you go sit next to her and talk to her?
But I already have friends.
Yes, and she doesn't, so be nice.
I told my friends I'd be back, and I listened to my purse. Hi, Catherine. My name is Georgina. Is it your first day here?
Hi. Yes, it is. But I don't know anyone here.
Aw, I'll be your friend. Do you like pandas?
I love them.
Why don't you come sit over here with me and my friends?
Okay.
I brought Catherine to our table and introduced her to my friends, and she fit in perfectly. When I got home that afternoon, I was exhausted. If you've been to high school already, you'd know that the first day is tiring as hell. But I was happy with my purse because at least she helped me do a good thing. And it seemed like she wanted to continue the next day too. I was walking through the hallway near the lockers when…
Georgie!
Don't call me that.
Look at that cute guy over there. Go talk to him.
No, I don't ever just want to go up to guys and make conversations. That's nuts. And I'm shy.
You shy, please. Hurry, do it.
I don't know why, but I listened. Hi, my name is Georgina, and I'm new here. What about you?
Hi, cutie. I'm a sophomore. I can show you around if you want.
Sure. He told me that his name was Elliot, and the more he spoke, the more I realized that he was definitely my type. Plus, he was cute. Like, really cute. He took me out the next weekend, and I decided that I just couldn't get enough of him. I wanted to be around him all the time, and before I knew it, my friends were teasing me about having a boyfriend, although we never really made it official. So, I guess you're thinking that my talking purse was pretty useful, huh? Well, she was, until she wasn't. I noticed that she was starting to change one Saturday morning when I was walking to the park to see Elliot. There was a little old lady trying to cross the road, and my first instinct is always to help. I started walking over to her to help when…
Don't help that old lady.
What? Why?
I don't like her face. Listen to me or else.
Or else what? Coralissa didn't tell me what the consequences were, but I thought that I should probably listen so she wouldn't kill me in my sleep or something. I didn't help the old lady, and she was nearly hit by a bus. But she was okay, thankfully. A few days later, I was in the grocery store with my parents.
Look at all that chocolate.
You're a purse. Why do you care?
Steal one.
No, I've never stolen anything in my life.
Hurry up. Do it.
I took a chocolate bar and I hid it in the sleeve of my hoodie.
Darling, are you okay? Who are you talking to?
My mom asked. Then my little sister started laughing.
I don't like that little girl.
Why?
She's laughing at you. When you guys get back home, I want you to feed her goldfish to the cat.
No, that's awful.
What's awful, dear?
Nothing, Mom.
You're so weird.
See what I mean?
When we got home, I waited until everyone was distracted, somewhere doing something. Then, I took Kayla's goldfish out of the bowl and went looking for the cat. Coralissa was hanging on my arm the whole time.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know why the purse was so excited about this. I found the cat under a tree outside and threw the fish in front of her. She gobbled it up in one bite, and then I looked behind me and I heard a scream.
Mommy! Daddy! Georgina fed Freddy to the cat! Mommy!
My parents came running out looking bewildered.
She did what?
No, I didn't. I'd never do something like that. My sister went to her room to check if her fish was still there, and sure enough, it was gone. My parents didn't believe her because I'm an angelic daughter, but I was sure that Kayla would never trust me again. But do you know what? Coralissa kept asking me to do horrible things, and I couldn't say no. She made me cheat on my math test the next week, and this is something I'd never ever done in my entire life. Later that week, she asked me to do the thing that would change the course of my life forever.
I want you to go into the computer lab and sabotage everything.
Why?
Just do it.
I waited for everyone to leave school, then I went into the lab and I just began smashing things. I poured water all over the keyboards. I threw the speakers at the monitors. I wrote all over the interactive whiteboard with a black permanent marker. And when I was gone, everything was broken. Every single thing.
Good job, Georgina.
She said, and we left the room. On Monday the next week, I was taken to the principal's office as soon as I arrived.
We know what you did. We have camera footage of everything.
It's not my fault.
How so?
It's my purse. She told me to do it.
Your what?
It's a talking purse. Her name is Coralissa, and she's been telling me to do bad things. The principal looked at me like I'd just fallen from Mars. My parents were called in, and they both looked like they were about to cry. I explained to them that the purse made me steal chocolate, feed the goldfish to the cat, cheat on the test, and finally break everything in the computer lab.
Yes, so we're thinking she has some serious mental health issues which need to be dealt with immediately.
The principal said, and I gasped. There is nothing wrong with me. You don't believe me? She's talking to me right now.
They can't hear me, you know.
Shut up.
Who are you talking to?
The purse. I was sent to an institution sometime after. I cried and I cried because I knew that there was nothing wrong with me and that this purse had ruined my life. Before my dad drove me there, I took the purse and I tried to set it on fire, but it wouldn't burn. So I buried it in a hole in our backyard. After spending 2 weeks on meds at the institution, I woke up one morning and the purse was right in front of my face.
Good morning, sunshine. Why don't we break out of this place? I'll explain how.
Incoming! Female, early 40s, motor vehicle accident.
Carrie, the head nurse, shouted from her station. "I'll take her," I said as I walked towards the emergency entrance where I knew the ambulance would arrive any minute. My shift at Woodvale Grove Hospital had just started, and she was going to be my first patient for the day.
Good morning, Dr. Hernandez. Surprised to see you here this early.
Diane, my colleague, said as she joined me. "What is that supposed to mean?"
Isn't your rich dad friends with Mr. Broth, the hospital director? I heard he's the reason you got the job. You don't have to work hard like the rest of us.
Clearly, Diane wasn't my biggest fan. "Come on, Diane, if you keep harassing me like this, I'll start to think that you like me. You know, all you have to do is ask me out for dinner." I winked at her and her cheeks turned pink. The wailing sound of an ambulance siren got her attention. A few seconds later, the ambulance doors opened and out came 2 paramedics and my patient. "Ma'am, can you hear me? What's your name?" I asked her after the paramedics briefed me on her condition.
I don't know. I don't know what my name is.
She looked terrified.
Looks like she's experiencing some memory loss. She can't remember her name or where she was going before she got into the accident. We didn't find her purse, so we've named her Jane Doe.
One of the paramedics explained. As Diane and I attended to the patient, neither of us knew that our lives were about to change forever. Before I continue with my story, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Also, to be the first to know when more cool videos are added, hit that notification bell. Good morning, Jane. How are you? Diane, what are you doing in here? A few weeks had passed since Jane Doe was brought into the hospital. Although she was fully recovered from her injuries, she still hadn't regained her memory.
Well, hello to you too. I was just keeping Jane company. Wouldn't it be funny if I regained my memory and we found out that my name was actually Jane?
We all laughed.
Do you have any good news for me?
Actually, I do, but I've got some bad news too. Diane, if you'd excuse us, I'd like to talk to Jane alone.
Whatever you have to say. Diane can hear it too.
Diane crossed her arms across her chest as if to challenge me to say anything else. God, she was annoying. I shook my head and continued. The good news is you've healed from your injuries. The bad news is, that means we have to discharge you.
But she still hasn't regained her memory. Where will she go?
It was clear that Diane had taken a liking to Jane.
I've made arrangements to transfer her to a nursing home nearby.
Mr. Broth, the hospital director, said as he joined us.
But she'll be there all alone.
We've done all we can for her. Someone else needs this room. Jarvis, I want her discharged immediately.
I found that a little harsh to say, especially in front of Jane. I also found it strange that Mr. Broth was eager to get rid of Jane, but I didn't dare challenge him. He was the director of the whole hospital. Do you know what that means? He was my boss's boss's boss. Right away, sir. I gave Jane an apologetic look, but there was nothing more I could do for her. Where are you rushing off to? A hot date? I teased Diane. Our shift just ended and she looked like she couldn't wait to get out of there.
I'm going to the nursing home to visit Jane. By the way, I knew you were cold-hearted, but you've not visited her even once.
I'm not cold-hearted.
Prove it.
Diane smiled. As far as evil smiles went, hers was pretty good. Prove that I'm not cold-hearted? Fine, I'll adopt a puppy. Happy?
As much as I'd like to see that, I meant you should come visit Jane with me.
She probably doesn't even remember me.
Actually, she does. She even asked if you and I are dating.
Violent coughing behind us startled us both. Mr. Broth was hunched over, coffee spilling all over his shirt.
Mr. Broth, are you all right?
Diane asked as she handed him some paper towels.
I'm all right, thanks. The coffee went down the wrong way.
Mr. Broth had been acting strange the past few weeks. He always seemed to be around the corner when Diane and I were together. If I wasn't mistaken, he'd just been eavesdropping on our conversation just then. Weird, right? When Diane and I arrived at the nursing home, we found some kind of heated exchange going on at the reception. When we got closer, I realized that it was between Jane and a uniformed lady. What's going on here? Jane turned around fast when she heard my voice. She ran straight into Diane's arms.
Please help me. They're kicking me out.
What? Why would you do that? I addressed the uniformed lady.
Her bill has not been paid for weeks.
That had been a mistake. Mr. Broth assured me that the hospital was taking care of Jane's bill. I demanded to see their records and was shocked to see that the lady was telling the truth. Jane's bill was unpaid for weeks. Why would Mr. Broth lie? I'll pay her bill, then I'm getting her out of here. I can't believe you were about to kick her out. I was going to have a very serious talk with Mr. Broth, but first Diane and I needed to get Jane settled into my house. After we moved Jane to my house, I went online and searched for PI services nearby. After almost 1 hour of searching, I settled on one and called them immediately.
Tom and Jerry Investigations, this is Jerry speaking. How may I help you?
I chuckled to myself as the man on the phone introduced himself. Hey, yeah, I'm calling to book an appointment. Early the next day, Jane and I sat in front of Jerry, the PI. He told us his partner Tom was out chasing a lead. Jane told him what happened to her and asked if he could try and find out who she was. He wrote down some notes and took a photo of Jane. We filled some papers, paid, and left. On our drive back to the house, I thought I saw a car following us, but a few turns later, the car disappeared. A few days later, I arrived at the hospital, and I heard Mr. Broth arguing with someone.
He's living with her, for goodness sake. I followed his car and saw him enter the PI's office. How could you let that happen? I thought I told you to get rid of her.
The voice sounded familiar.
Please calm down, Mr. Hernandez. My plan was going well until that nosy Diane took Jarvis with her to the nursing home.
Mr. Hernandez was my dad. Were they talking about Jane?
We need to get Rachel away from Jarvis before she regains her memory.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I rushed out of there and called Diane. I told her what I'd overheard, and she was just as shocked as I was. We agreed to meet at my house. Minutes later, I was stuck in traffic when Diane called me.
Jarvis, Jane is not here. I found your door unlocked. Should I call the police?
I thought about it for a second. Don't call them yet. I took a U-turn and drove back to the hospital. When I arrived, I went straight to Mr. Broth's office. I didn't even bother knocking. Where is she? Mr. Broth didn't even look up from his desk.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Jane, what did you do with her? What are you and my dad hiding? That got his attention and he stood up fast.
Jarvis, you need to lower your voice.
Tell me where she is now. I overheard you and Dad earlier. Jane's name is Rachel? Mr. Broth sank to his seat and held his head between his hands. Start talking. And if something happens to her, I'll report you to the cops.
She's not in any danger. She's on her way to the airport.
What? Why? How could she just leave without telling me?
Please, sit down.
Mr. Broth handed me an old, dusty medical file. Whose medical file is this?
Open it.
The name on the file was Rachel Miller. Dad had referred to Jane as Rachel. Could this be her file? I don't understand.
Jane Doe is Rachel Miller. 23 years ago, she came to this hospital pregnant. Before I became the hospital director, I was the head obstetrician.
That means he used to help pregnant moms give birth to their babies. It says here that she gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, but they both died?
That's what I told her.
You lied to her? What did you do with her babies?
I...
He sold them.
We were both startled by the sound of Rachel's voice. When did she even get there? Hey, Mr. Broth said that you left.
He lied. Your dad showed up at your house with a check for $5 million. He told me to take it and disappear. I took the check, and he asked his driver to drive me to the airport. After the driver dropped me at the airport, I took a cab and came straight here. Jarvis, I remember everything.
That's great news, but I don't understand why my dad is interested in getting rid of you.
Wait, where's Mr. Broth?
I looked around and was surprised to see that Mr. Broth was no longer in his chair. He must have slipped out when you and I were talking.
Jarvis, I need to tell you something.
Rachel had tears in her eyes. What's wrong?
The babies Mr. Broth sold, one of them was you. He sold you to Mr. Hernandez.
You're my mother? But Dad told me that they adopted me after my mother died at birth.
He lied to you. A few weeks ago, before she died, your mom, Mrs. Hernandez, hired a PI to look for me. She gave the PI a letter confessing to everything she, Mr. Broth, and Mr. Hernandez did. That's what I was coming to tell you when I got into the accident.
Have you ever gotten news so shocking you thought your head was going to explode? Yep, that was me as I listened to Rachel. All my life I thought I was lucky to have such loving adoptive parents. Boy, was I wrong. We need to tell the police.
Yes, but Jarvis, you have to know that if we call the police, Mr. Hernandez will get arrested too.
I thought about it for a minute. Did I really want that? My dad and mom had been wonderful parents, but they also stole me and my twin sister from my real mom. What would you do if you were me? Let me know in the comments. As much as I don't want to see my dad in trouble, you didn't deserve what they did to you. So yes, let's go to the police. The police arrested my dad an hour after we made a report. He was shocked to find Rachel and I at the station.
Jarvis, I'm so sorry. Your mother wanted the baby so badly.
So you stole mine? How could you do that?
Rachel was screaming in my dad's face, tears streaming down her face. A few minutes later, uniformed officers walked in, dragging a very frightened Mr. Broth. When Rachel saw him, she lunged for his neck like a tiger would.
Get this crazy woman off me!
What did you do with my other baby, you lunatic? Where is she? Lady, you need to calm down and let us do our jobs.
A lady officer told Rachel. She asked us to wait as they questioned both my dad and Mr. Broth. An hour later, she came out and gave us some shocking news. Mr. Broth had finally told them that he sold my sister too. That wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was who she really was. Diane is my twin sister, but she grew up in foster homes. Mr. Broth sold her to a foster home? The officer might as well have told me I was growing two horns.
The woman he sold her to died when Diane was a toddler. She went into foster care after that. Mr. Broth has been secretly paying for her education. Then he got her a job at the hospital. I guess he felt guilty.
I didn't know how much more I could take, so I told Rachel I was leaving the station. She asked if I could accompany her to break the news to Diane. And I said sure, why not? It was going to be one interesting family reunion. I called Diane and asked her to meet us at my house. When she arrived, we sat her down and told her everything. Rachel and Diane cried and embraced each other so many times. I too felt tears prick the back of my eyes, but I cleared my throat and pushed them away. There was no way I was going to cry in front of Diane. I'd never hear the end of it. I guess now we know why Mr. Broth choked on his coffee when he heard us talking about dating. For the first time since she walked into my house that evening, Diane laughed.
So what happens now?
Diane and I looked at Rachel.
Well, you both have had quite an eventful day. I know you need some time to process everything, so I'll go back to my home, and whatever each of you decide, I'll accept it. I'd really love to get to know you both, but that's up to you. I'm just happy to know that you're alive and well, and that Mr. Broth and Mr. Hernandez will pay for everything they did.
Dinner was quiet. Each of us deep in thought about the events of the day and what it meant. The next day, Rachel went to her home. I planned to visit her often so we could get to know each other more. A few weeks later, the case against Mr. Broth and my dad began. Diane and I got Rachel a lawyer and promised to be there for her every step of the way. After all, she was our mother. Ah, yes, another family reunion where I am completely ignored, I thought as I sat on the sofa. Granddad sat next to me.
Well, I know that this isn't your cup of tea, so I've got a job for you if you want it.
Sure, Granddad, what is it?
I'll pay you $150 to clean the attic.
I hated family reunions, but little did I know this family reunion would change my life forever. While cleaning the attic, I found a black leather bag. Its zip was rusted in place. I put the bag to one side and continued cleaning, but I couldn't help but wonder what was in the bag. A knock on the door diverted my attention.
It's 10 o'clock. Mom and I are ready to leave. Granddad said you could stay and finish cleaning up if you like.
I'll stay and finish cleaning up.
Okay, I'll be back in the morning to pick you up.
Thanks, Dad. Dad gave a thumbs up sign before he headed downstairs. The next morning, I noticed the $150 on my nightstand with a thank you note from Granddad. I showered quickly before I headed to the kitchen where Granddad was seated.
You did a great job in the attic.
Thank you. Granddad, I found a black leather bag in the attic. Do you know what's in it?
I have no idea, but I hope it's something you could use.
After breakfast, Dad picked me up. I thanked Granddad for everything, grabbed the bag, and hopped into the car with Dad. As soon as I got home, I grabbed a box cutter before I headed to my bedroom. I sat on the floor with the bag in front of me and rubbed my hands nervously. Okay, this is the moment of truth. But first, guys, there's this new game that I've just started playing that is just as exciting as the stories on this channel. It's called Raid Shadow Legends, and if you like action and fantasy, you'll love this game. There are over 600 champions, gens, missions. You can fight players online, build up your champions to defeat bosses, and level up your stats. Use my QR code or links below to download Raid yourself to your mobile phone or PC. Raid has added a super-powered clan boss to their lineup, the Hydra. Ooh, it scares me just thinking about that six-headed beast. It's got multiple different heads, and each one has unique mechanics. It can share the pain and push damage from itself onto your team. It can scare your champions, rot them from the inside, cloak itself in a cloud of poison, and do a ton more crazy things. It's pretty hard to defeat, but once you do, the loot from that boss is out of this world. Also, here's a tip for you guys. Join a clan and fight the clan bosses to get the best weekly rewards. You can thank me later. There's a ton happening in Raid this month. To start off, Raid's releasing a bunch of awesome new champions, along with a brand new faction war script for one of my favorite factions, the Shadowkin. On top of that, there's a ton of New Year events and tournaments, including a special fusion event where you can get one of Raid's newest legendary champions. And if you use my link or scan the QR code right here, new players will get some free resources and a free mystery champion straight away to kickstart your game. Hit my link and see who you'll get. You'll find these rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. And now, back to the story. I took the box cutter and carefully punctured the bag. I gingerly cut below the zip, hoping not to damage the contents inside. When it was cut from one end to the next, I parted the bag and looked at its contents. The bag was filled with stamps. My eyes widened. I was never much of a stamp collector, but anything dating back to 1845 in great condition had to be worth something. I logged onto my computer and began to research some of the stamps. Among them was the inverted Jenny stamp, estimated at $1,351,250, and the British Guiana 1 cent magenta, 1856, estimated at $9,480,000. As I looked through the stamps, I estimated its worth to be approximately $100 million. I walked downstairs, calmly grabbed a few Ziploc bags, and returned to my room. After I repackaged the stamps and placed them in a black plastic bag, I quickly concealed the stamps with the board inside my closet. I arrived home one afternoon to find Mom and Dad in a heated discussion.
Your father has other children. What about Mark or Richard?
Oh, please. Richard doesn't have time. He just became a judge. He's never home, and Mark can't even boil water.
What's wrong with Granddad? My parents stared at me blankly. Mom cleared her throat.
Granddad took a nasty spill at home. The doctor said it's his blood pressure and he needs to be monitored.
I'll go help Granddad.
I don't think that's such a good idea. You have college to consider.
I don't want to go to college.
What do you mean you don't want to go to college?
Mom, I never wanted to go to college. That was your dream for me. It was never mine.
I just think that going to college is better than being your granddad's babysitter.
Mom, you and Dad can either give me your blessing to go, or I can leave without your permission. I'm only 4 months shy of my 18th birthday. It's your choice.
Ruth, let the boy go.
Early the next day, Dad dropped me off at Granddad's. Dad gave me the list of Granddad's medications and the times they should be taken.
Son, I didn't want to do this, but here's $200. Mom said since you want to live with Granddad and not go to college, you'd have to find your own way to survive.
I didn't respond. I jumped out of the car and headed into the house. After I greeted Granddad, I made sure he had everything he needed. Then I found a safe place to hide the stamps, which was under the floorboards under my bed. Over the next few days, I found some odd jobs around the neighborhood, like mowing lawns and washing windows. It wasn't much, but it helped me and Granddad eat every day. After I returned from the supermarket one afternoon, I checked Granddad's mailbox and took the few pieces of mail inside the house. Hey, Granddad, I collected the mail for you.
Thanks, Joel.
I went to the kitchen and packed away the groceries, but when I returned, Granddad had a grave look on his face. What's wrong?
This letter says my house is foreclosed on, but my mortgage has been paid for the past 15 years. I don't understand. This must be a mistake.
Call the bank. They probably mixed up your name with someone else. I brought the phone to Granddad and he called the bank.
What do you mean? What $150,000 loan?
Granddad fumed. After a few minutes, Granddad hung up. With tears in his eyes, he mumbled,
I'm going to lie down. This is just too much.
After Granddad exited the room, I took the paper that he left behind and opened it. It said Granddad had 1 month to come up with the remaining $100,000 or he would have to move. But why is this the first time Granddad received a letter? Shouldn't he have received notifications before a final notice? Just then, I heard rustling outside. I peeked through the windows and saw Uncle Mark closing the mailbox. I watched as he took the porch steps 2 at a time. I shoved the letter in my back pocket before he opened the door and entered.
Did the mailman pass today?
Uncle Mark asked gruffly. I have no idea. I've been inside all day, I lied. Without another word, Uncle Mark left. I knew Uncle Mark had something to do with this. I just didn't know what. During dinner, I told Granddad I had a plan to save his house, and once I got the money, I'd give it to him for him to pay the bank.
Police aren't going to come knocking on my door, are they?
Granddad raised an eyebrow. No, Granddad, everything will be legit. After dinner, I did extensive research on people who could help me get my stamps sold. Finally, I came across the name Samuel Makovich. He had a reputation for being the best of the best. I called Samuel's number and we chatted for a bit. I also sent him a picture of the stamp that I wanted to sell. He said that he would set up the auction, and all I had to do was to bring the stamp an hour before to ensure it was the real deal. He also took 20% of whatever the stamp was auctioned for. Once the phone call was over, I put the stamp back in its hiding place. I returned home from work the next day and entered my bedroom. Something was a bit off. It was the bed. My blood ran cold as I ran to the bed and removed the floorboard. It was gone. All of my stamps were gone. I ran to Granddad. Did anyone visit while I was at the supermarket?
Yes, your parents and Mark were here.
Thanks, Granddad. I'll be back in a few minutes. I took a bus to Uncle Mark's. By the time I arrived, Dad's and Uncle Mark's cars were in the driveway. I crept up to the house and peeked into the living room where my parents and Uncle Mark sat. Luckily for me, the window was open, so I heard everything.
Mark, how could you let it get this bad? You promised you would have it paid off in time. Stop griping. I still have a month. I know my garage will work. It just needs more time to take off. But I have a plan.
I hope that whatever it is, it's a $100,000 plan.
They chatted for a few minutes and Mom and Dad got up to leave. As they exited the house, Mom received a phone call. Uncle Mark waited until Mom and Dad drove off until he removed the stamps he had stolen from the black plastic bag. I watched as Uncle Mark went through each stamp, checked his computer, and took notes before he returned the stamp to the bag. After about 10 minutes, Uncle Mark finally left the room and I slid inside through the window. The stamps were still on the table. I placed them in the bag quickly and tied a knot at the top of the bag.
What do you think you're doing?
I turned slowly, straightened my shoulders, and looked him squarely in the eyes.
Is that so?
I almost didn't see the left jab that came flying in my direction. I was able to dodge the blow by half of an inch. Uncle Mark and I began to fight, and the stamps flew from my hand. Uncle Mark was larger and taller than I was, and he was definitely winning this fight. I watched in horror as Uncle Mark grabbed a bookend and raised his hand menacingly. Suddenly, Uncle Mark was pulled backwards and I heard Dad's voice. I watched as Dad landed a punch in Uncle Mark's stomach and he doubled over in pain. Mom helped me up. What are you guys doing here? I asked, one arm wrapped around my rib.
Granddad called and said you left in a rush after you found out we were there. You didn't come home, so we checked here.
Mom said as she held me steady. I scanned the floor for the black bag. When I saw it, I picked it up quickly. Uncle Mark stepped towards me and Dad stood between us. Looking at Uncle Mark, Dad asked,
Joel, is that yours?
"Yes."
Good, let's go.
As we walked down the driveway to Dad's car, Uncle Mark called out.
I hope you find out who your real mother is, like how you found that bag of stamps.
I stopped in my tracks. What did Uncle Mark mean by that?
Uncle Mark is just blowing off some steam.
Mom said as she steered me closer to the car.
We'll talk about it when we get home.
No, I need to know what Uncle Mark meant, now.
At least let's discuss it in the car.
Dad suggested. As we drove away from Uncle Mark's, Dad told me that years ago, when he and Mom were married for about 3 years, they were having a hard time in their marriage because Mom couldn't have children. Dad had an affair and later found out the woman was pregnant. Unfortunately, she died during childbirth. After many months of counseling, he and Mom were back together again.
Son, this isn't really how we wanted to tell you.
I'm almost 18. When would have been a better time for you? When I was standing at the altar on my wedding day? Who else knows about this?
Everyone knows. I was so angry with what your father did that I told everyone, but I begged them not to tell you anything.
For years, I thought I wasn't liked because I was the youngest, only to find out that it's because I'm the outside child of the family. Stop the car.
Now, Joel.
Dad, please stop the car. Dad stopped the car and I hopped out with the black bag in my hand. I walked the rest of the way to Granddad's house, trying to come to terms with the information I just received. When I got to Granddad, I slipped in the kitchen door quietly, not wanting to disturb Granddad in case he was resting. As I tiptoed into the living room to head up the stairs to my room, I heard Granddad on the phone. I was about to greet him, but what he said made me stay quiet.
Yes, my grandson has a plan to save the house. As soon as he gives me the money, I'll purchase our tickets to Hawaii, where we can start a new life.
I slipped out of the house. Does everyone in this family keep secrets? Was there no one I could trust? I called Samuel and asked him if he could pull off the auction in a few hours, and if the buyers could walk with cash. Samuel replied,
There's nothing Samuel can't do. Well, the price goes up 40%.
I agreed, and Samuel gave me the address of where I should meet him in the next 3 hours. I arrived at the auction at the said time and shook Samuel's hand. He took me to his office where he checked the originality of the stamp, and we signed the contract. That night, 4 of my stamps were auctioned, and I made a whopping $7.5 million. After the auction, Samuel escorted me to a hotel he suggested with his bodyguards. He told me that he knew the best real estate agents if I wanted to get a place of my own. He gave me their card, and I thanked him. The next day, I hired Samuel and his bodyguards to escort me to the bank. He spoke with the manager, and my money was placed in a safe, where I and the manager were the only people with the key. On my 18th birthday, I purchased a house from Samuel's real estate agent. It wasn't anything glamorous. It was simple and elegant. I decided to open a business and flip houses, which, by the way, I'm very good at. I was able to open my own bank account, and I went to the bank and told them to remove my name off the accounts with Granddad and my parents. Every month, Samuel and I had an auction until 3/4 of the stamps were gone. I then placed the remaining stamps in a black leather bag and placed it in my attic. I never returned to Granddad's, and I told my parents that I needed time to think. The last time I heard about Granddad, he lost the house and moved in with my parents, and Uncle Mark got into a bar fight, and Uncle Richard sentenced him to 1 year in jail. I thought that family could be trusted, but my family taught me that you can only trust people as far as you can throw them.